What's up, photographers? I think it's really important that we often question our belief systems, even when it comes to little things like photography. And so, one thing I question is, do I really need to always shoot in manual? I am a manual photographer in the sense that I just shoot manual because I'm used to it. I enjoy the process. I like the consistency that manual photography gives me rather than relying on an exposure compensation or, your meter varying your shutter based off your aperture selection, that kind of thing. Because sometimes it varies from shot to shot and it shouldn't because you moved your focus point or something like that. So I prefer to shoot manual. But I'm a photography teacher and I'm teaching new people. And I think it's easy to think the way to go when teaching people is you got to teach them pure photography. They have to shoot manual. And I agree they need to learn how to shoot in manual. I think it's a good tool to help them understand how exposure works. However, do you always need to shoot in manual? And is aperture priority or shutter priority sometimes okay? And if you guys want the short answer, I want to say yes, it's totally okay to shoot in aperture priority or shutter priority. And I honestly question my own way of shooting, which is to mostly shoot manual. I'm talking about 95% of the time I shoot manual. There is times where there is a situation in which you want to shoot in aperture priority or shutter priority. What would that be for me? That would be when you're shooting varying conditions shot to shot, meaning maybe I have to photograph someone outside and then photograph someone inside from shot to shot. Like I'm not going out and shooting a bunch outside then inside. So if I have two situations with varying exposure, I have two options. If it's close enough to each other, I will actually shoot in manual and quickly dial my shutter to the right or the left because it's become intuitive for me how many times I have to dial to do how many stops of light, and I'm not thinking about it anymore. But if it's going to be more than a stop or two, I will then switch to aperture priority because what matters is my aperture to me in most cases. I'm not really concerned about what my shutter is at as long as it's not too slow. But one of the many things I'm juggling as a photographer is I'm keeping an eye on that. So that would be one situation. When might you not do that? Well, if it's not just a one-off, maybe it's a brief moment in an event where you have to shoot two different situations, two people lit differently. Maybe you're going to be shooting in one spot all day and another spot at times all day. That's when you can program your settings to a specific custom function. That's what your C1, 2, and 3 on your camera are for. I'm guessing most people never use them. I rarely use it even. But there are situations where you do want the same exposure multiple times throughout the day. So for example, last week I shot an event with a step and repeat. I decided to just use the lights they had set up. I wasn't using my strobes, I wasn't using my flash, I used their lighting setup. And so rather than changing my aperture depending on the size of the group to give myself more depth, I decided, okay, I'll just shoot it. I think at f4 should be enough. Everyone's lined up in a straight line. f4 is good. So I set my settings up so that anytime I was in front of that step and repeat, I could go to C1 and I would have a proper exposure. That allowed me to get a lot of things happening around the step and repeat without having to fumble around with either my settings. If I were shooting manual, that would be really slow, or just shooting aperture priority, which would be a solution, but then I wouldn't have consistent results in front of me at the step and repeat. I wanted everything shot at the same exposure to avoid any excessive editing. These were also images that had to be delivered same day. I'm looking down because we have a visitor. Come here, buddy. The mutt decided to join the video. Probably should walk him soon, so let's wrap it up. The whole point of this video is, do you need to be a manual photographer? And the answer is probably not. I think it has a place. If you want consistent results, I strongly recommend shooting manual. But that said, you can get similar results by shooting in aperture priority. And what I mean by similar results, I mean controlling your depth of field or controlling your shutter, that kind of thing if you do shoot shutter priority. All right, that's it for today. If you guys shoot shutter priority, let me know in the comments. I've literally never done that in my entire career. I do think there's a place for it, but I've never actually used it. I'm curious who has used it. Let me know your thoughts. If you guys liked this content, please feel free to like and subscribe. I think it's always important to know who you're watching. So if you guys want to check out my work, go to mickmillman.com. You can see all of my professional work as well as my personal work. I will see you guys in the next video.